Hello, my name is Justin Wagner and welcome to another episode of Aquasavvy TV. On today's episode, I want to discuss a problem that a lot of saltwater hobbyists are encountering, and that is the brown flatworm. Now, this little flatworm is only a few millimeters in length, but a couple of weeks ago, I noticed a few of them cruising around on the glass of my tank. So I started doing some research, my wife and I did, and we found out that there's actually quite a few ways to actually manage the flatworm population in a tank. Everything from the 6-line wrasse all the way down to the green mandarin fish. A lot of these methods, though, only manage the problem. And as I said on my last video, I want to actually do more with this tank. I want to go ahead and expand and get a bigger tank in the future. And I want to import my ecology, my live rock that I've cultured, my livestock. So I don't want to be dealing with a flatworm issue forever. So my wife and I, after much research, we opted for the eradication approach. With that, we found a product that had a lot of very good reviews. Flatworm Exit. Again, mixed reviews. A lot of good reviews, but there were some bad. And what we noticed in all the information was the deciding factor on whether or not people had problems with it was whether or not they followed the directions. So, again, follow the directions. As near as I can tell, follow the directions. This is my first time using this product, and so like every saltwater hobbyist, we're going to go ahead and do a little experiment. I already have mixed up the appropriate amount of Flatworm Exit in some tank water and mixed it thoroughly, and I'm going to add this to the pump section of the sump of this 29-gallon BioCube. That way it'll mix thoroughly with the tank quickly and move through the system and get everything primed. The other thing I've done is, obviously I don't have a UV filter or an ozone filter portion of the of this tank. But I have removed all the activated carbon. And that is a very important thing. I don't want the carbon sucking the medication out of the water column before it actually has an effect on the worms. So we're going to go ahead and do this and see how it works out. Rinse out the cup just to make sure I get all of it. After all, we're working on a budget. And that was the other nice thing about this product is it was not terribly expensive. I have a few bubbles floating in the tank from my pouring the water directly in on the pump system. So as cloudy as this tank is going to get, though, with the worms floating, I don't think that's going to be an issue. Okay, so here we are just about 30 minutes after I added the dosage to the tank. 10 minutes into it, the flatworms started rushing all over the glass, the ones that were on the glass. They were speeding around like they had their little tail ends lit on fire. So I'm taking that as a really good sign. I see a few of them are floating around in the water column, but not very many. I'm actually surprised. I figured I had a lot larger infestation than this. I've got a small power head that I'm going to plug in here and go in the tank with my arm and blow it around to try to blow anything out of the nooks and crannies of the rocks. I have the live sand is actually a sugar sand base, so it's very, very fine. I'm going to try not to blow too much of that into the water column because I don't want to make everything terribly cloudy. So let's go ahead and give this a go. Okay, as you can see here, this additional little power head is generating a lot of current, and I'm blowing all kinds of sand out of all kinds of places. I'm seeing a few flatworms that I'm kicking up, but not really a whole lot. I'm surprised. Again, I keep being surprised. I'm not really having as big. I have been siphoning them out, but I thought I would have had a bigger infestation than this. Okay, there's Lacey. The kids named her. She's normally, whenever I'm taking pictures of the tank, she's out in front getting in the way. I'm honestly surprised that she's been this camera shy through this first 2 episodes of this series. And, well, I think that I've done about as much damage as I can with this without really stirring the sand bed up. I think I've done about as much damage as I want to with this power head. So I'm going to turn it off and wait for the water column to clear just a little bit before I see what's going on. I think though that I'm getting pretty close to doing my activated carbon and water change. As you can see, this is the activated carbon. You can see how large it is. It's a little over a ½ pound. If I were just to put this in the tank, it really wouldn't do that much. The water would just flow around it. So where I'm going to put it is at the latter half of the second stage of the sump, just before it goes through a small grate and into the pump section. This is going to force the water to go through the activated carbon and is going to be more effective in filtering out the bodily toxins that the flatworms secrete. Everyone that has lost livestock to treatments using flatworm exit, it hasn't been the flatworm exit itself that causes the livestock to die off. It's actually the toxins that come from the flatworms themselves. As they're stressed and dying, they secrete their bodily fluids into the water column as a defense mechanism, but it kills everything in the tank. And that's one of the problems. If left unchecked, the flatworms, one, they can become such huge numbers that they actually cover things and suffocate them. Corals, live rock, even your sand, even your live sand can be suffocated by them. But then they'll reach a threshold level where they'll all die, and it nukes everything in your tank that they haven't suffocated. Again, this is why you deal with this when it is a small problem rather than a big one. Okay, now I'm going to go ahead and add the activated carbon to the system, and what I've got down here is in between, we can go ahead and get a shot of this, in between the filter sponges. I have this fiberfill media here as just a filter to polish the water. We have our filter sponges, and then down in here is that grate I was talking about, down in there. So there is a bag I'm going to extract that is a biological filter media. I'm going to extract that so that I can place this activated carbon, which is, as you can see, a much larger bag. I'm going to place this with some care down in front of that grate, and then I'll go ahead and I'll put that filter media back on top. Now again, that activated carbon is to remove the toxins of the flatworms themselves. So, as you can see, now that the water column's a little bit murky from me disturbing that back there, the activated carbon is going to start pulling those toxins given out by the flatworms, and we're just going to go ahead and leave that back there for now. And again, I've been siphoning out these flatworms. I'm really not seeing anything in the water column that's too apparent. There still are a few very stressed out flatworms, very tiny flatworms on the glass, but I'm not seeing very much stuff floating around even after blowing everything off. So again, with that little piece of fiber fill, that fiber mesh, using it as a filtration, I'll probably collect most of the dead flatworms in that and can throw it away. They'll be gone. Hello, we're back again. And it's been almost an hour. It's been about 55 minutes since we put the initial dose in, and what we've already, as we just saw, added the activated carbon. And what I'm doing now is siphoning some of the dying and dead flatworms from the water column, and some of the stressed flatworms that are still hanging on to the glass off the sides. They are coming off exceedingly easy, obviously, because they don't have the grip that they used to. Okay, so now it's been about an hour and 10 minutes since we added the flatworm exit to the tank. So now I think is the perfect time. I'm starting to see more dead flatworms in the water column. I think it's the perfect time to go ahead and start the actual water change, so we can eliminate some of those toxins. All told, I will have done approximately a 1/3 water change. I know they recommend at least 25% water change. This is a small tank, but as I was siphoning out flatworms with the flatworm vac, we were adding fresh water back to the tank, as you saw, to compensate for the dropping water level in the pump section. So that will actually have raised the amount of water overall that we've changed. Okay, well, now to the water change. Okay, now we've siphoned off about 5 gallons of water. Now we're going to start adding it back to the tank to replenish the water that we just siphoned out. Alright, well, we have completed the water change. The activated carbon is in the sump, in the main flow of the entire tank, doing its job, with the water actively penetrating the carbon media bag. So as the instructions say, we're going to observe this tank over the next 6 hours, make sure nothing horrible happens. And then we're going to go ahead and look at it over the next few days. We're going to have a follow-up video to this next week because, as the instructions also say on Flatworm Exit, it is a good idea to look at your tank a week later and possibly retreat. So, again, we want to exterminate these flatworms from this tank so that we have a clean tank, a clean system for the future upgrades. So, with that, this is Justin Wagner for Aqua Savvy TV. Please stay tuned for next episodes.